make sure you communicate that because we want to make it better. We want to make sure that everything's operating the way it should and everything's going the way it should. If you have ideas about how to make the show better, or if you notice people asking a certain question, every time I do the show, I get this question. Make sure we know that that's going on so that we can add that to the show, so people don't have to ask that later. So today we're going to just learn a little bit about the coil as far as the technical standpoint. I would encourage you all between today and tomorrow to do as many dry runs of the show and the script as you can. You don't have to play it every time, but just getting comfortable with the room and the stage. We have yet to figure out the seating and exactly how we're going to work with the television and all that. But once we do figure that out, it should be pretty easy to do. The main thing is that if you can get the script in your head, but make it your own. It's just like when you go to the museum and you're facilitating things in the museum. We want to make sure that you make it unique and you make it your own and you give it your own flair. As long as you're not venturing too far off the script, and if you're not making stuff up, it's completely okay. All right. So the goal is when people come back, there's 18 different songs on here, and there's a million different ways to present the information. So as long as when you come back that somebody has a different experience in here, so like a member, if they come back 3 different times, they go to the show 3 times, and they see the show 3 different ways, that's what we're after. So that's it could be a really cool dynamic thing. I'm going to stop talking. I'm going to introduce, first is Richard Mathias. Richard, I've known Richard for 7, 8 years now, and he has been instrumental to me in my career, and it just so happened that we were fortunate enough and lucky enough that he wanted to make Hands-On Museum the next destination for one of his Tesla coils, and he puts forward a lot of his own time, effort, and money to make things like this happen, and this would not be possible without Richard. So I'm happy that Richard's here, and I'm happy to introduce him. The next person is Christopher Hooper behind you. Christopher is one of the engineers that Richard works with to make sure that things like this get made, and Richard's responsible for a lot of the things, or Christopher's responsible for a lot, and Eric over here, they're responsible for a lot of things that are over my head, and this is Eric Goodchild, and he's with Goodchild Engineering, and between the 3 of them, they really make this thing happen, but they begin to talk way over my head really quickly. Their breadth and depth and knowledge and things like this is really, really incredible, and Richard really found a couple of great people to make this Tesla Coil program work. Feel free to ask them questions, feel free to inquire. Don't feel like you're going to feel stupid for asking a question. There's no such thing as that when you're dealing with this kind of exhibit. So
you've heard them all.
Yeah, you've heard them all, and we're just here to make sure the visitors have a great experience. But if you have a question that you have in your mind, that could be the question that a visitor might have. And so ask them while they're here. They're a great resource and a great team as far as explaining things and how things work. And I've learned so much in the last 2 days just from talking to them. So please ask questions if you feel like you need to while they're doing the presentation. So I'll pass it over, I guess, to Eric and Christopher, if you guys want to kind of take it from here, and we'll kind of go through the technical runs, and then envision how the show will play out according to that script, according to how they're running through everything.
Howdy, everybody. I'm Eric Goodchild. I'm one of the contractors that built this, and this is Chris Hooper, who's already been introduced. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to basically explain the basic principles of operating it, and I'll also give you a little bit of background on how it works. I'll keep it as simple as I can. So let's start with what it is. It's a bipolar Tesla coil. The reason it's bipolar is because of the fact that it's sitting on its side and it's driven from the center. So a lot of Tesla coils, though, you'll actually see them, they actually stand upright and they have a single torus on the top, and you usually get sparks out of the top. The reason why this is bipolar is because we're driving it from the center here with the primary, and you've actually got sparks coming out of both sides. The advantages of using this coil are very technical, so I won't go into that too much. But Christopher Hooper here did all of the plexi work on this machine. It's all built by hand. There's well over 2,000 hours of work into this piece of equipment. Anyway, so that's basically the type of coil. It's all solid state, so it's a bit more modern than Tesla's original design. Tesla originally started with what is known as a spark gap and some really basic parts. I think the original Tesla coil had about 4 or 5 parts in it. This has numerous computerized controls and modern industrial equipment that are make it more reliable and allow it to play music, which is the big thing about these, which is really great. One of the things I'd like to explain is that, because almost everybody asks this question, is how does it play music? So Chris and I always like to use this analog. A good way to do it is explain how a speaker works first, because a lot of people understand that. Is you've got a paper diaphragm inside the speaker, and that diaphragm, whenever you want to make a sound, moves in and out. It vibrates, and what that does is that actually in turn vibrates the air, and our ears perceive that vibration in the air as a particular sound. So if we move the speaker cone in and out 440 times in 1 second, it would sound like a middle A on a keyboard, and we perceive that as a middle A. And when you basically change that frequency in a sequence of ways that it sounds like music, you can play notes and so on, and that's how you get sound out of the speaker. Now with the Tesla coil, it's a bit different, but the concept's the same. Basically what you're trying to do is displace air. You're trying to move it out of the way, and you're trying to vibrate that air. So whenever we create a spark across the top 2 electrodes here, it's essentially a plasma. It's not, you can't see electricity. Electrons are subatomic particles that are invisible to the human eye. But what you do see is an ionized plasma. And what that is we're basically putting so much energy into the air that it causes the air molecules to vibrate really fast until they start giving off light, and they also give off heat. So what that does is whenever you create a really hot plasma, that plasma displaces air, it pushes it out of the way. And although this looks like it's on continuously, it's not. It's actually turning on and off really fast. And it's the same concept as a speaker. Whenever you turn on the spark, it pushes air out of the way, and whenever you turn it off, the air collapses back into where the spark was. So if you, same concept with a speaker, if you turn that spark on and off, say 440 times in a single second, it sounds like 440 hertz or an A on a keyboard. So that's essentially how we get it to play music. We're essentially turning the coil on and off 440 times a second, for example, for an A, and we control that on the fly. We control the frequency on the fly by this device over here, which is the podium. So that brings me to my next step. The podium over here is basically an embedded tablet. So if any of you have used a Windows 8 tablet, it's exactly the same. It's pretty simple.
Christopher.
So we have, let's see here. So if you guys want to gather around, I'll show you the podium here. So the podium's very simple. It's got 2 parts to it. It's got the controller, which is how we control the parameters of the Tesla coil, and then we have the tablet. And the tablet is there to select the musical piece and also to start and stop the playing of music. Now the next thing is this whole device has 2 modes of operation. So we have one that plays music, which is what you were seeing a few minutes ago, and we have another mode that just makes sparks. Now the mode that just makes sparks, you don't need to use the tablet at all. So that's what this switch does here. This switch right here, and they're all labeled on the side, so you got your E-stop, your safety, your mode switch, enable, frequency, and power. And they just correspond to the switch that's over to the side of it. Now the mode switch, whenever you move the mode switch, all you got to do is pull up and toggle it. It moves up or down. When it's in the up position, it's in frequency mode. And the frequency mode is the mode that does not play music. So it doesn't need the tablet, you don't have to touch it. And then there's these two switches down here. We've got the safety, which is key switched, and we have an E-stop. Now these two switches are what are used when we first start up the coil. So the coil over here, you can see it's got these 3 lights on the side. We got the blue one, we got the orange one, and we got the green one. Now the blue one just indicates power, and it's pretty obvious when it's on. There's all the LEDs are on and the blue LED's on, so that means the coil's on and plugged in, but it's not charged, so it won't be able to produce any music. So the way we start the system up is you put the key into the key switch and you rotate it. Now it's still not on because the E-stop is activated. So these two switches combined together have to both be on in order for the coil to charge. And what will happen is the coil, when you first turn it on, it has to actually charge up. So there's a certain amount of power that's got to be introduced to the coil before it actually will operate properly. And you'll know it's fully charged when the green light comes on. So what will happen is when you have both of the switches enabled, you will know it's enabled because the orange light will come on. It'll make a light click noise and the orange light will come on, and that indicates that it's charging. So it'll come up, orange light will come on, and then it'll sit there depending on if you had just turned it on or not. If it's at a cold start, meaning it hasn't been on for a while, it could take up to 30 seconds for it to fully charge. And it'll make an audible click noise, and the green light will come on, and you'll be ready to run. So right now, when both the switches are in, so key switch on, and then the E-stop is pretty simple. If it's pushed in, it's disabled. If you twist it, it'll disable it. So the orange light comes on, and it'll start pre-charging. If we just give it a couple of seconds here, the green one will come on when it's ready to go.
I might share with everyone, we're going to record this whole thing and give Andy a copy of it so you can look at it over and over and over, because it takes a while to learn it.
Okay. Yeah.
Good thinking.
Yeah, I know it's a bit daunting at first. So the green one comes on, so it's essentially ready to run. Now at this point, the system is live, so it has power on it, and no one should go near it. You shouldn't go near it if that light is ever illuminated. Now, the next thing is this switch here, this big red switch, this big missile, launch the nuke switch. Now, this switch right here, there's this system through the coil. This podium actually controls the coil through a piece of glass. There's actually a thin piece of fiber optic, which is these orange cables coming out of the bottom of the podium here. And there's 2 of them, and you can actually see them. They come out of the pipe over there, and they plug in over here. So that's where the coil is actually controlled. It's actually controlled through this hair-thin piece of glass. So whenever we turn the coil on, there's a light through the glass and the coil turns on. Whenever there's no light, the coil stays off. So what this guy does, this switch here controls whether or not that fiber optic is allowed to run. So when it's closed, the fiber optic is cut off and the coil will not operate. There's power on it, but it will not run. If you turn off either of these switches, the key switch or the E-stop, it will also disable the fiber optic and cut the coil off immediately. So like if you have a problem or something like that and someone runs up there, just slam on the big red button. It's very, very easy to do. And that'll not only cut off the power, but it'll also turn off the coil instantaneously. So as I was saying, once you've got both your power switches enabled and you've got this guy open, you go ahead and hit the switch and it'll turn it on. Depending on the mode, it could turn on immediately, or it'll turn on when you select a song and play it on the tablet. So let's start with frequency mode. That doesn't require the tablet. It's really easy to understand. So in frequency mode, you've got these 2 knobs right here. Now you got this one controls power, and this one controls frequency. So frequency is just how the coil sounds. So it'll change the pitch of and it's fun to play with. You can turn it wherever you want and make all fun sorts of noises with it. And the power knob, don't worry about breaking it. You can't. We've set it up such that you can turn it pretty much anywhere and you won't wreck it. But the idea is if you want to only make a small spark and demonstrate that there's just a little bit of corona coming out the top, so you can turn it down and it'll only produce a little bit. And you'll see on here, so on the display out here, if you look, there's one that's labeled frequency, and there's one that's labeled power. So, and the way these work is if you're fully, I believe it's counterclockwise. Yeah, fully counterclockwise is no power, and it'll display it on here. It'll say off. So fully counterclockwise, even when this guy is on, there's nothing coming out. And if you slowly start turning up this knob, it'll start producing. And then obviously fully over to the right will produce a full spark that connects in the center. So if we turn up the power a little bit and then we adjust the frequency knob, we can change what it sounds like. So that's what those two knobs do. Feel free to play around with them and experiment with them. That's what they're there for. Now, word of caution, whenever you change the mode switch on this thing, you want to close the fiber optic enable. You want to make sure that's off before you do any switching. So now what we'll do is we'll go ahead and I'll show you the MIDI mode. The MIDI mode's pretty simple. So remember, just close the switch, pull up the toggle switch, and switch down to the MIDI mode. Now the tablet is where this comes in next, and that is essentially just a Windows 8 tablet. So if any of you use Windows 8 tablet, you'll be right at home. The way it works is you just hit the Windows button, and that brings up the main screen. And right now it's already logged in. There'll be a login credential so that people can't just come up to it and log in. But it'll be a pretty simple password. Usually what we do is we use Tesla's birthday, which is 1856. And I'll close this out so I can start you guys off from the very beginning on how it looks. So when you log in, it'll look like this, which is the start menu for Windows 8 tablets. And there's the desktop, and then there's our custom player. So the player is what you'll open. You just open it up, and you can maximize it. And it looks just like this. So there's 4 buttons. There's a keyboard. Now the keyboard sort of works, so if you want to play with it, you can. I mean, it's a touch screen, so it's not super fun. I mean, it sort of works, but Anyway, so the first thing you do when you open up the software is you have to select the output device. Now, the output device is going to be this guy. Now, I don't know how many of you are familiar with a MIDI interface. I won't go into it too much, but it's essentially a digital musical interface that allows computers to talk to real-world hardware. And it's not like your traditional audio, like if you plug in your headphones where you actually send, like the actual sound down the wires. This is actually like a digital protocol. So it's a little more advanced. So it's very simple. What you do is to select the output device, you hit the big old button that says output device, and you only got to do this once when you first start up the software. Once you've selected the output device, it'll remember it and you don't have to do it again. There's a little drop down menu. Drop it down and you'll see that there's really only 2 options. There's one that's grayed out, which you can't select, and then there's another one here which is Tesla Synth MIDI. And you just click that, make sure it's selected in the box, and hit OK. And it's selected. So now what that means is that any output from this program will go to this box. So now what we do is we go and we open a file. So you hit the open file dialog, and it'll open up the folder that's got all the music in it. Now if for whatever reason this, you can't find this folder, it's just a folder with files in it, and you can navigate to it. It's just on the desktop of the tablet, so it's real easy to find if someone never gets it mixed up or lost. And they're all labeled, so you can go ahead and you just pick a song. I'll pick Adam's Family here, and you hit open, and it'll load it in. And now, whenever you hit play or stop it, it'll just start playing that song, or it'll stop the song. But there's a couple things you got to do before you hit play. So what you do is you got to make sure it's in MIDI mode. So MIDI mode means that it'll accept input from the tablet, and you have to hit the enable switch. Now the power knob does the same exact thing it does in the frequency mode. So it'll actually control power output. When it's fully counterclockwise, you won't have any output even when you hit the play button. It'll just not produce anything. As you start to turn it up to fully clockwise, the sparks will get longer and longer and longer as it's automatically playing the MIDI. So what I'll do is I'll start it off real low for you and I'll hit play. Anyway, our software's still got stuff going on. If it ever crashes on you, just open it back up and select the device. And then we'll select the same song. So you're playing, and you can see the green light here. That means that it's actually coming through the file dialog. And if you actually start bringing up the power, and you can always hit stop when you want to stop it. But yeah, this knob right here basically just controls the size of the spark when you're playing music or when you're in frequency mode. It does the same thing in both modes.
It's almost like a volume control.
That's a great way to explain it. It's like volume control. Although most of our stuff is designed to run when it's at full power. So, you know, a lot of people are like, can you turn that down? That's like one of our most commonly asked questions. You just tell them, no, it's supposed to be that loud. So anyway, and just for gratification, like if you ever forget whether the counterclockwise, clockwise, I know it can be confusing. You can always look up here on the power menu, or this little thing on the display here, and it'll give you a number. Lower numbers, lower powers. Higher numbers, higher powers. So like right now, we're fully counterclockwise, and it says 37. That's the lowest it can be. And as you saw, there was like almost nothing coming out. If we turn it all the way up, you're at 730, and that's the highest power. And that's when it's going to be connecting sparks in the center, and it'll be at full volume. And that's where it's normally supposed to be run, is all the way clockwise. And that's pretty much the whole interface. We've tried to make it as simple as possible. It's actually more complicated in the past than some of our older exhibits.
Believe me, after you do it a couple of times, it comes pretty easily.
Yeah.
I mean, even I could learn it after a couple of times. It really is.
Does anyone have any questions?
Also tell them about the microphone.
Oh yes, the microphone. So there's that's a good point. So there's a PA microphone up here. It'll all come through the PA system, so there's a switch on the back of it, and you can talk through it. What I'd recommend is you turn it off whenever you're playing the Tesla Coil, because if you don't, it's going to amplify it, and it's going to be even louder. So yeah, probably don't want to do that. So whenever you stop a song or start a song, you know, in between your intermissions, you should probably close the big red missile switch. That makes the system safe. So for whatever reason, someone accidentally bumps the play button or whatever, it's not going to start the coil playing and freak everybody out. The music will play through the speakers, and you know, that's not a big deal. You can just hit the stop button. And then the last thing I guess I'll demonstrate here is how you power it down for the day. So that's really easy. All you got to do, take the key out, and you're done. You can take the key out or hit the big red button, does the same difference. But generally speaking, you'll probably be taking the key out between shows, because that prevents people from inadvertently coming up here and messing with the controls on the podium, and doesn't allow them to operate the coil. And as you can see, both the orange and the green light went off, which means that the system is no longer charged. It, however, does have power on it, and it will continue to have power on it for like the next 15 or 30 minutes. Because what it does is whenever the key is removed, it automatically starts bleeding off the extra power, but it takes about 15 minutes. So like if we were to start it back up again immediately, it actually charged up much quicker than it did originally. So if we start it back up, it's already charged. We didn't even use any power, lose any. And that's pretty much the operations of it.
Eric, why don't you explain to them a little bit about the ozone, what's going on? People are going to ask some questions.
Oh yeah, that's a good point. So this coil produces what is known as ozone. To explain what that is in a little more detail, oxygen is what we normally breathe. It's kind of a mixture of nitrogen and oxygen. And oxygen is 2 molecules of oxygen. It's known as a dipolar bond. And ozone is produced when you introduce very large, high quantities of voltage into the air, and it ionizes it. And what that does is it actually creates what is known as O3. It's a polar bond of 3 oxygen molecules. And you can smell it. It has a very distinct smell.
Like a sweet smell.
Yeah, almost like a sweet smell.
It's, you know, if you ever see lightning storms, you can smell the ozone. It's the same thing.
It's the same thing. Now, a lot of people are like, oh, is ozone safe, blah, blah, blah. In small quantities, it's fine. Matter of fact, there's a lot of commercial air purifiers on the market that actually produce ozone, and you can smell it. In higher quantities, it can be kind of annoying. And I speak from experience. I've had ozone poisoning before, but that's because I was wearing a mask and having a small Tesla coil arc to my face for about 15 minutes, and I was breathing nothing but O3. And it's very weird. The symptoms for ozone, for acute ozone poisoning, are basically, I experienced intense coughing for about 3 hours. It's just like every 10 minutes, trying to get it out of your lungs. And then the other common ones is splitting headache, and nausea is another common one.
But these are high concentrations.
These are really high concentrations.
He's wearing a mask and it's arcing to him.
I was wearing a mask and it was arcing into my face, and I was breathing nothing but it. In this room, we were testing it all day yesterday, and we didn't see any problems. I mean, it was barely high enough in here for us to even smell it.
You might explain to him it settles to the bottom of the floor mainly. It doesn't rise, it settles to the floor.
And O3 or ozone is very unstable. So basically, it'll break down back to regular oxygen in 2 minutes.
Yeah. And
It wants to become oxygen, but I think the main thing for the visitors is that people probably will smell it and will ask.
Right.
it's a cool thing to explain scientifically too. You gotta remember, it's three molecules of oxygen, and that's also why it settles to the floor, because it's 3 molecules of oxygen. It's heavier than the O2, and the O3 will actually settle down to the floor. But as Chris explained, it's because it's an unstable bond. Oxygen generally wants to be in a bipolar bond with only 2 molecules. And so after a short amount of time, it will actually break down and reform into 2 molecules.
Eric, why don't you go over what's down below here, that they don't need to get in there, but explain to them what's down below here.
So you shouldn't need to get down below. What's down below is the amplifier for the speaker system and also for the mic. So if you ever do need to get down here, there's 2 keys. There's a square key and there's a round key. The square key is the one for the enable here. Do be sure that you put it in the right way. Richard demonstrated us the other day that you can put it in upside down if you force it.
It doesn't work.
It doesn't go that way.
It doesn't work.
It should go in really easily. So if you're trying to push it in and it's not working, try flipping it around. The bottom key down here is pretty simple to get undone. Just rotate that, and then this door comes open. And there's a amplifier down here. Now this really shouldn't need to be touched. All this does is it adjusts the level on the microphone and it adjusts the level on the output of the speakers. And there's 2 knobs. There's a smaller knob over here. I don't know if any of you would like to come take a look, but there's one over here on the corner that adjusts the microphone volume. And then there's one over here. It's the one in the far right bottom corner of this. That adjusts the overall volume of the whole system. So that basically, if it's too loud or not loud enough, you can bring it up or down. But like I said, we've already pre-adjusted that pretty well, and it shouldn't really need to be touched. So for the most part, this should, stay locked, so visitors and stuff don't inadvertently try and play with stuff down there. Let's see. That almost covers everything.
So did you want them to try to run it?
Yeah, that's the next step.
Yeah.
So, who wants to go first?
I'll go. You wanna go? Go for it.
Go first.
No, you go first. Ladies first. I go for it.
Here you go.
Center's like,
So it's charging. I know it's nail biting. There it is. The toggle, like I was saying, it's locked, so you pull up and toggle.
That's a trick.
Yeah, don't try and force that either. So you want to go, if it's not all the way down, when you pull that switch up, it'll actually start off making sparks. It can scare the crud out of you sometimes.
So you pull it. So if I wanted to go back, that's how it.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's designed that way so you don't accidentally, trip it. There you go.
a good idea if I'm flipping back and forth. Like, what I'm thinking is for the show, so people aren't waiting a whole lot of time to see the coil actually be shut off. We kind of do a little teaser with frequency mode, and my thought is that with that safety first sign, we don't want to up during the show because I don't want to take away from the coil. But what we might do is demonstrate the wireless capabilities of the coil by hanging it up next to the coil on the left hand side, and then in frequency mode just playing it for like 10-15 seconds, so the audience kind of gets a teaser of what the coil looks like. In that case, the best thing to do then to switch back to the MIDI mode is to flip this the nuclear switch.
Yep.
Okay, and then I can go into here.
Yeah, so you hit that and just swipe it up. If it's already logged in, it'll come up right where you were.
And so it's probably a good idea for you just to leave it there, right?
Yeah, but if it's ever closed, it's
You gotta log in.
you got to log in and bring it up. But the other point is do not turn off this tablet. It's a pain in the butt to turn back on. And the reason why that is because this tablet was never meant to be embedded in a podium. It is just a standard Windows 8 tablet. So the power button's on the side. So in order to turn it back on, you gotta stick your arm up inside the podium and hit the button. So
leave it on.
Leave it
Podium
on.
always stays on, right?
yeah.
But will this, if by hitting Windows, will it go back into sleep mode? Is that the idea?
It'll go back into sleep mode automatically if it's
Okay, so if I just let it go, it just will go back down.
yeah. And then the other thing too is if
I see.
if you swipe from the side, it's kind of hard to do when you're upside down, and you go to settings, you can go to power and you can go to sleep, and that will put it into sleep automatically and it'll lock it.
What's the time on it? Like if I let it go and it's playing a song, and then the show stops.
And you shut it off. If it's just sitting there, I think it's about 10 minutes.
So that's probably what we'll do. We'll just let it sleep.
Let me check something real quick. Battery's not charged, so it's making me think we might have accidentally unplugged the charger yesterday or something.
And that's another reason why it has to stay on it so it stays charged. The tablet.
Let's turn off on a break. No, I'm just wondering if it got turned off.
Oh, no, it's on right
There it goes. Must have come unplugged the other day when we were.
I think when we swapped the fiber out yesterday.
Yeah, that might have been it. Yeah, so keep an eye on that. I'm sure all of you have used tablets before. Or down in the corner is your little battery indicator. It'll have like a little plug next to it if it's charging. So if it's not charging and the battery's kind of dead, open it up and you'll see it's very common, familiar hardware that I'm sure you're all familiar with. It's just there's a plug underneath the tablet where the power plug goes in, and then there's like a power strip up top, and there's a plug. So if for whatever reason it comes undone, or just make sure that you keep an eye out for it. Because if you don't, the battery's gonna die, and then you're gonna try and start the tablet like, why is it not working? So anyway, sorry about that. Yeah.
This will stay popped up.
Yeah. The only time that goes down is if you push it.
Okay. So you really don't have to mess with this unless kid runs up.
Yeah, it's like an emergency button, just hit it. And it shuts everything.
It's fun to turn though, if you want to try it.
So. And you got to be enabled in order
Right.
before
That's
you
what I
hit the
was-
play.
So disabling it though in between frequency and MIDI is probably a good idea.
Yeah, and between your songs too, because if you, like I was saying, if you inadvertently hit the play button, it's not going to start the coil. It'll just start playing through the speakers and won't freak everyone out. Because I've done that before. So you're still in frequency. I know.
All right. Now I play.
Yep.
So that's off, and when you're turning on the breakers daily, so we have a lot that stay on. That one needs to actually stay off, but I'll make sure I label that today. Who wants to go next?
Can people take video and pictures while this is going?
Absolutely.
Hunter really wants to go.
Yeah.
Go, Hunter. You got it. There,
Yeah, and like
I
I
want to try
said,
to close it out so she has to go through the whole thing.
oh yeah, so go back to the desktop.
They can make it hard.
This one?
Yeah,
Or this?
the desktop, and just close out this this whole program. There you go.
Sorry.
Now, I'll put it in the sleep mode too. Make it really hard. You're gonna have to do everything. If I can get it to swipe. This is significantly harder to do when you're upside down. All right. Just remember, you can't break it.
Famous last words.
Don't yell at us.
Well, I mean, yeah, if you hit it with a hammer, maybe, but let's not do that.
Yeah.
Okay, so what did you want to do first? Did you want to run it in frequency mode or
Yeah.
mini mode? So when you move this, just remember to pull up because it will lock if you don't. And that's just so you don't accidentally bump it. So yeah, make sure you're all the way down. And this one doesn't matter. That's just your frequency. Yep. You can actually just close that and it'll shut it off. Oh, she's a pro. It's like she's done it before. Did you just select the output device?
Yeah.
Oh man, you're way ahead of me.
Natural.
You have no idea how long I waited to do this.
You're doing really well.
So make sure you're enabled. Turn on your fiber enable, and you can, if you want, you can start your power all the way up. It's not going to hurt anything. You can turn it all fully counterclockwise.
Close your ears.
You're ready.
you go.
Anybody else want to try?
Y'all are gonna have to do it at some point.
Was it your 4-year-old that built the Lego?
No.
Do you want to start from scratch, or do you
Oh,
want to
okay.
just start with with the program started up?
I'll start from scratch.
All right. Oh, here. So just sometimes this thing's annoying.
Okay.
So what we'll do is I'll lock it for you and everything. Let's see. You're ready to go.
Okay. All right. I'm gonna play with frequency.
So remember, you got to lift it up. There you go. You got it.
All right.
And you got to have your system enabled first before you try and run it. Otherwise, nothing's going to come out. That's what you see what I'm saying? So like right now, you've enabled it, but watch what happens when you turn up the power.
So.
Try turning it up. Watch what happens.
So the light. So this is what turns the light on, or.
The key and the big red button
Okay.
both have to be on. Both buttons have to be on, and then you got to wait for it to charge. So it's good to go. And now you can turn on that one.
Okay. All right.
Don't be afraid to turn it up more if you want. It's not going to break it.
All right. All right. Okay. So then.
You push it all the way down until it clicks. Oh, did it click? I guess it did. Never mind.
Okay.
So
now-
swipe up. Whoop, there you go. Oh, sorry, it's on the, so if you're ever on the desktop and you need to get to the software, just hit the start menu, and there it is.
Okay. Ah.
So a lot of times what's nice about this is if you want to maximize it too, feel free to maximize it. Make it a little easier to work with.
Okay. And then. All right. Let's just stay with the bluegrass thing. All right.
Now, turn your power up and enable it, and ready to go. You're still in frequency mode.
Oh, I see.
You gotta go to mini mode.
That one's tricky. I relate.
Okay. All right.
There you go.
No, we've heard that one already.
She's taking control.
Oh, okay. Whoa, I just selected 3, so.
Oh, yeah, just click on one, it'll stop selecting.
Alright.
There you go.
Alright, I'm done.
Alright, let me set it up for the next contestant.
Thanks.
Keep in mind too, the way we'll probably have this set up is right now, you guys are just swiping and it's already logged in. Most of the time what it'll do is we'll have it set up such that the password is enabled so that if, if somebody just tries to come up and play with the tablet, they have to enter a password to get into it.
We will be giving out the disposable earplugs to everybody that wants to use them. We'll have like a basket of them in the theater.
It's in, but it's not turned. So, there you go. What did you want to try first? MIDI mode?
Yeah.
Okay, so just verify that your switch is in MIDI mode.
Okay, then do I
That's already enabled, so if the lights are on the coil, then both of these are good to go. So now go ahead and hit the Windows button, swipe it to log in. It's already logged in. So right now you're on the desktop, so to get back to the start menu, just hit the Windows button again. There's the software. And then you want to do Open Device. This one right here. And then you select the drop-down menu. Yep, that one. And select that.
There's stuff off of Go-Gurt. I have Go-Gurt too.
Okay. There you go. And now you can pick a file.
Let's try, if you don't mind, Stars and Stripes and see how you like it.
Stars and Stripes is not on there, Richard.
Oh, what's the other one?
Oh, Star Spangled Banner?
Star Spangled Banner, I'm
Yeah.
sorry. It's really
in there somewhere.
impressive.
Yeah, it's in alphabetical. Or at least it should be.
Do you like having this one?
It's much easier to see that way.
So before you hit that, you
No, you can go ahead and open the file. Just pick a file, select it, and hit open. Now it won't start playing until you hit the play button.
okay, but everything over here is
So now, right now, since it's red, yeah. So right now you can see the colors. Now you're at a real low number.
Yeah,
So saying clockwise is full.
Okay.
There you go. Yeah, you can leave it there. And then open up your switch.
This is impressive. Wait till you hear this one.
Yeah, and you'll notice this will go from red to just no, not on at all. And then when it actually starts playing notes, it'll flash green. So every time it turns on, it'll go green. There you go.
Electrifying new exhibit is set to open today in downtown Johnson City. Here's News 5 WCW's Julie Newman with the scoop.
Hey guys, this is a one-of-a-kind exhibit, and the Hands-On Museum is the only place that can boast that it has one. It's the Tesla Coil Experience, a tribute to its creator, super inventor Nikola Tesla. The 6-foot-long, 200,000-volt bipolar coil is the first of its type and the largest in the world right now. The shocking music it makes will provide a huge wow factor for museum guests.
with the technology of solid state, which we have today, we are able to transmit music through the Corona display you see at the Tesla Coil. This is called a plasma speaker. It's actually coming out of the sparks.
This exhibition it could inspire the next engineer or any number of career paths for children.
Isn't that cool? The Tesla Experience opens today, and it will be a permanent part of the Hands-On Regional Museum. I'm Julie Newman, and I hope to see all of you a little bit later on News 5, starting at 5.
And we should say people with the museum come on our show every other Wednesday at noon. So always fun doing kind of
fun
hands-on.
experiments they have as well. So we back